If I was able to interview him about his thoughts about nuclear weapons, it would have been a wonderful thing, because he gave some of those beautiful speeches about nuclear weapons and the abolition of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I think with all these world leaders, what's interesting is what do they as human beings candidly feel about these weapons. They've had their fingers on the buttons of arsenals, and they've had to think about what that means. And I think that human dimension, when you really give the reality of a decision to a human being, is very interesting. And that part of the trick was not just getting all these amazing world leaders to be in the movie, but actually getting them to be interesting and candid, because the obviously tendency is to be very guarded, very sensitive, very polite around these horrible things. People use euphemisms like deterrence. I mean, the sort of vocabulary around nuclear weapons is hilarious if you want to sort of deconstruct it in your, literature and politics class. They're too horrible to sort of talk accurately about.
I would love to talk to him about Reykjavik and his relationship with President Gorbachev, who we also have in the movie, who talks about his relationship with President Reagan. And that's one of the high points in the movie, is when Gorbachev talks on camera in an interview we did with him about Reagan.
And the transcript from the 1986 meeting he had with President Gorbachev was very interesting. And at one point, these two leaders actually proposed all-out disarmament to one another, and their advisors freaked out, and then it didn't happen because of Star Wars and so on. But just that possibility is sort of quite fascinating. And the transcript has this beautiful piece where Reagan says, hey, in 10 years you're barely going to recognize me, I'm going to be an old man, and you're going to say, Ronnie, is that you? And I'm going to say, Mikhail, really? My sight's going. But hey, let's get together and destroy the very last weapon together, and then let's throw a tremendous party for the whole world. Which is sort of a wild idea, that famous liberal Ronald Reagan.
As a liberal, I go, oh wow, Ronald Reagan, you go back. Ronald Reagan was one of the most outspoken people on nuclear weapons and the abolition of them. And so it's a good lesson for us that that people call themselves liberals, they call themselves conservatives, but one of the biggest, most sort of looked up to conservative presidents in our lifetime, President Reagan, talked about the abolition of nuclear weapons. It's a good lesson, I think, for everybody.